Another missed opportunity, unfortunately, for Arsenal. Did not match the sort of performance expected of a side trying to clinch fourth.
I think it was quite a worrying performance in terms of the quality of the performance. The way that Newcastle was so much better than Arsenal. Really, really very disappointing. I always felt that Spurs were going to pip Arsenal from some time ago. We're looking at their fixtures. I know there's progress being made from an Arsenal point of view, finishing 8th for the last 2 seasons and now finishing 5th. But really, really disappointing. And of course, it's going to be that same pressure will be there again at the start of next season. I think that Arteta, will be given that time to get his team right. I think there's a desire to keep him in the position. He just signed a new 3-year contract. But I just feel that he needs to get the necessary players now that can help him in those sort of tough situations that they were in against Newcastle. I can see problems when I look at the team. And people are going to say, well, look, you never managed, you never worked. But I've been in successful teams. And tactically, I saw issues against Newcastle about being too deep. I saw players acting as individuals. I saw Tomiyasu being quite exposed and no one really sort of helping in front. And it always seems to be the youngsters that are carrying the club. It's a very young group. But then, of course, the obvious thing then is to pack the team with some experience. So I imagine that's what's going to happen in the transfer window in the summer. But they have got better and they've moved up now into 5th place. But it's a huge disappointment for me as an Arsenal fan.
What do you say to those that may have looked at Arsenal's season? Because let's not forget, at one position they were in pole position to finish in 4 points clear of Spurs. They had 3 games to go as well, but they had those losses to Spurs. They had that loss to Newcastle as well. Some people are suggesting they've collapsed, they've bottled it.
I'm not saying that. I just think that the fixtures...
I'm not saying but some people are referring to it that way.
Yeah, I didn't see it that way. I think it just comes down to quality and have you got the necessary depth in the squad.
Do you think Granit Xhaka was alluding to that, though?
I'm not quite certain what Granit Xhaka was saying after the game, whether or not he was saying that the group that he was with were not quite up to it. Of course, he has to be a part of that group, and he's, he didn't have a particularly good game either in that game, but not too many Arsenal players did. I can only think of maybe Saka, who had a decent game, and Martinelli perhaps when he came on, and Nketiah was up there on his own. You look at the season and you reflect and you think about key decisions, and I do feel that still there need to be strengthening made in that midfield. That central midfield position needs to. I think now maybe with Xhaka at the club, it's time for change. That I think maybe now the club need to be looking. I'm not saying get rid of him completely, but I just feel if he's coming on and making a contribution, then the midfield then needs to get better and develop. Partey's been injured for long periods. Lokonga has obviously been deemed to be not quite good enough. El Neni, is he the answer? So that's an key area, that engine room, which it needs to be better. I do feel then you can bolt the kids onto that in the front areas, but Aubameyang being allowed to leave, 13 goals that he scored for Barcelona, that's not going away. Now that was a key decision that was made.
That was a mistake, you think?
I said so at the time. I'm not backtracking, moving from my position. I just felt that somebody of that ability, and if he was good enough to sign a new contract just a few years ago when they won the FA Cup, I'm not sure why he was deemed to be such a bad apple and got rid of in the way that he was.
Did you
want a player of that quality in your group?
You did?
Yes, I did.
So do you think Arteta was right to get rid of him?
And I think it was a decision that a manager took. Some would say it was a decision to stamp authority in the dressing room and take someone else to do that. Others might say it was strategic thinking about having a young group of players that needed the positive influence that isn't just based upon a performance, it's based around an overall culture. Too many times in football, players get let off with things that they don't do by things that they do. And there should be a higher standard at elite football clubs like Arsenal, where the captain of the team should be held to the highest standard. So he had 2 problems. A, his performance wasn't anywhere near the level that would be acceptable to even give him any justification. And B, his attitude and discipline seemed to be miles off. So I thought it was an incredibly brave decision. You look at Arsenal in isolation, and you distill it down, and you say that the 3 games that they went off the boil for against Southampton, Crystal Palace and Brighton are the reasons why they're probably not finishing 4th this season, because they bounced back and they beat teams like Chelsea and they beat teams like West Ham, teams that are arguably far more compelling, both in positional terms from Chelsea.
Inconsistent, aren't they? Lose 4, win 3. We lost the first 3 games of the season, so you have to. They have come back from a really bad position, but once they get into that position, Simon, they've let it go,
and that was the undoing of them. But I also think that Arteta has earned the right. He's got a new contract, which I felt curious because I don't think they needed to do it, but they've laid a marker down which will protect him economically if next season he isn't. I think he's earned the right to have another year on the merry-go-round. I think if this year doesn't produce something more substantive than 5th spot and building, young players are great for a team because they want to play for this club. They respect the opportunity to play for it rather than signing heavyweights that sometimes come in there and do you a favour on £100,000 a week and play in a way that they feel they want to play. So he's got to get the balance right between this effervescent group of young players that will dip. Martin will tell you that young players dip. They can't maintain it, and that's why they've lost their balance this year, because they haven't got enough experience. But I'm also interested to see what Martin's reaction is, because he's touched upon it but not gone into a deep dive on it, about Granit Xhaka, about his reaction, what was said, because Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher piled in on him about it. Neville was appalled by it, but also Arteta was a man that was shell-shocked afterwards in terms of, I know he's disappointed.
That surprised me.
So what was your reaction to that?
Well, it surprised me that, if we turn to the manager first, because if you're inconsistent, you don't exactly aspire to the targets you set each other in every match. So why he was surprised by the performance, that surprised me.
Yeah.
Because they are inconsistent.
It's priced in, isn't it?
They are inconsistent. Yeah. And the exiting manager, if we go back to Arsene Wenger, when he sat down and did a fantastic interview talking about the blueprint of what you want within your team, he told everybody, look, I want mature players to be successful. Whenever I was successful, I had really mature players. So 28, 29-year-olds. Yes, I'll take some kids, but really I want the emphasis. Now, Arsenal have been the youngest team in the Premier League this season. Now, I don't think that is the smartest thing to do. I admire the way they're going, but you need to fill it with experience. And so Xhaka was the experienced player in that situation.
But then that comes down to letting Aubameyang go, not bringing in anybody else. That comes down to Arteta. That comes down to Edu.
Yeah, and of course then you've got to be answerable to those decisions when it doesn't go well. And I was always of the view that that's going to come back to haunt Arsenal. You want somebody as a defender, and I was talking about Ian Wright in glowing terms yesterday, and Henry and Anelka. Those guys give you the belief that you can win games. We throw ourselves in front of balls to block things because eventually they're going to get a chance to win us the game. When you take that sort of individual away, and Nketiah's done an amazing job, but we know that he's a second-string striker. He's not an A-liner.
Yeah.
And when it is that Barcelona came running, look how he's enhanced them. They've made it into the Champions League. That was the order of the day, and we made a mistake there.
But Barcelona nicked him. But I think it takes a bravery aspect, because he was doing it on neither fronts, Aubameyang. We can hypothesise about what he may or may not have given them, but he hadn't given them anything for a substantial period of time. And then he was challenging the authority of the manager. Mm-hmm. Now, the manager put himself on offer, because for the very reason that Martin's alluding to, he could have the wheels could have come off, the team could have dropped further down the league, and as it happens, the team picked themselves up and got onto a run of form post Aubameyang's departure that seemed to validate the decision. Now, Martin will of course point to the fact that when it came to the business end, they couldn't close it out. But sometimes short-term gain equals long-term loss. He took the pain in the short term to build a culture in that football club that didn't include an elite footballer that felt that the standards that Arsenal Football Club should want to represent didn't apply to him, with punctuality, leadership and basic principles of performance levels. And of course he's gone to Barcelona. Everybody knew he's a good footballer. We know that. Of course he's gone to Barcelona. But the moment he gets himself under the table and something isn't quite like he likes, he'll revert to type.
So,
yeah, but the fact that he's gone to Barcelona, though, and done so well, just tells me that he still had all that ability. It's the support process around him.
No one disputes
and that's what a manager does.
But he wasn't doing it.
He supports.
But sometimes you need to change, don't you? You need to move on because it's just not working anymore.
Punctuality is a basic... Come on now. He was the club captain. He was making decisions that were for the well-being of himself.
I think that was maybe the only problem.
Else.
Maybe he shouldn't have been the captain. But, so therefore, make that decision. But then don't take him out of the club completely, because you're going to need him. And if you can get him back on board, I don't think he was that bad apple that everybody perceives him to be. But you also have to
believe, Martin, that irrespective of how disconnected the board will be, the one thing they like is money, and the one thing they want is a return on their money, right? So letting him go, a £58 million footballer, after giving him £350,000 a week, would have been a considered decision that wouldn't have just been made on the back of a fag packet. I'll do as you want. There would have been consultation with Edu and Kroenke to say he's got to go.
So decision based on money.
I think it's a decision based upon the fact... No. If it was a decision based upon money, they'd kept him, let him do what he wanted to do, and sold him. They gave him away for free.
But then maybe Arsenal might be in the Champions League now, and they'd be £20 million better off for getting.
But what I'm saying is the rounded decision wasn't just.
I understand that the manager, and I don't want to sound like
Are you sold?
I don't
on
want to sound like a.
Are you sold on Arteta?
I am, but I don't want to sound like a disrespectful former player that is creating any kind of poison in the background, which former players have been accused of. That's not me at all. We back the manager 100%. Only last week, me and Simon were arguing about me wanting to pick a consummate 11 and not picking any Spurs players because I was wholeheartedly wanted to support those players into that journey. But when we finish and we look at it and we look back at this, how do we learn? How does anyone learn going forward? And if we're making mistakes, I think he was picking a fight with the wrong person, Aubameyang, because he was the one. He held the key for us getting to the Champions League. And it was could we have not found a way to have take the captaincy away but kept him at the club?
But argument would have been valid, Martin, and I hear what you're saying, if he was actually performing on the pitch.
Yeah, but because
he was doing
it's still
neither.
valid now because of what he's gone on to do since. It's because they've demonstrated Barcelona with the right support system, he still had the skill set to be successful.
He's been indulged and thrown into an environment where...
He scored 13 goals.
And no one... And I would have wagered you any money, and I said it at the time, because we were having the same conversation. I bet he goes over and scores goals. Be no surprise to me, because he's gone into a new environment, and the moment he gets his feet under the table, the moment he finds something he doesn't like, he'll revert to type. And that's not what you build big football clubs upon. You let Mavericks have a little bit of space, but you don't let them.
Well,
set
for me,
the tone.
revert to type is one of the top goal scorers in Europe. If you look at his record at Dortmund and where he was, he was a top goal scorer over many years.
And reverting to type was having a disciplined record at Borussia Dortmund that caused concern. No big club wanted to sign him. Arsenal took a punt. When he landed in this country, everyone went, not sure about this, and then he set the world alight. Then we all had to wait for the egg timer and how much money he was going to get. And the moment he got his new contract, for 18 months we sat there going, okay. And then what we had to compound a lack of form was also and indiscipline. And I think Arsenal were brave. I think they compromised economically.
The thing is, that's not been made public.
This
self-discipline, I'm not really sure where that comes from. It was interesting. Tuchel was saying, look, you with this player, Aubameyang, you have to be, make an adjustment. We did that for him. His timekeeping is not the best, but he's a good player.
We have to take a break.
And he spends time on the training ground.
We do have to take a break on this one.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.